Sabrina Samuels, your lifestyle, etiquette, and relationship coach. You know, life is really beautiful when we make it that way. So let's get started. Welcome back to my show. I'm Sabrina Samuels, and I thank you for tuning in. You're fabulous. You already know that, right? Good. Remember it. When you're feeling down sometimes and you don't feel like you're up to speed, just remember, you're fabulous. I'm so happy you joined me on this edition. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, please. And give me a comment. I love hearing from you. Matter of fact, I heard from someone who called me who's interested in me working with her young daughter. I'm going to do some private classes over the phone, but I'm trying to really encourage her to do a group so that I can come to all of them and just do a weekend workshop, which will be very, very beneficial. So we're working on it. But what I want to talk to you about is this. What she was telling me kind of resonated with me when I was a teenager, just moving back to Indiana from Louisiana. Our mother had passed away, and we were going to go to college at Indiana University for my oldest sister, Angelique Martin, and myself. And of course, the other sister, Gina Marie, she was young and still in high school. Well, I got with the wrong group when we first, started, college, and I'm going to be kind of stumbling over this because I don't want to say anything that might be disrespectful. But I kind of got on the wrong foot. I got with the fast crowd. I wanted to really, let people know I was in it to win it. Of course, later on I got it together, but I'm going to tell you how I did that. I was with the wrong crowd, and they were going to have this party. And of course, I was a little nervous and a little hesitant about accepting, the invitation because I knew that they were kind of a rowdy bunch. But I wanted to, let them know I was all in for it, and, I wanted to let them know that I didn't have to respect my parents, my father and his wife, my stepmother, and I wasn't really feeling where they were coming from. My dad, he did a good job. He had a nice little house that he fixed up. They called it the doll house on the corner. He had a beautiful boat, and he had a cabin up in Wisconsin Dells. And we would go up there periodically fishing, and he liked to fish and take his boat out. And I thought that was, showing off. I didn't want my friends to think that I was trying to be all that in a bag of chips. So I just said, I don't want to do all that. I'm not into all of that. That's so phony, fake, etc. So I wasn't into it. So one weekend, my dad and my two sisters, my stepmother, they were going to Wisconsin. So he said, Sabrina, get everything together because we're going to be leaving Friday evening, heading out to Wisconsin, and we're going to be there, for a couple of days. And I said, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to Wisconsin. That's for square people. There's a party I want to go to. I'd already accepted the party, so I wanted to make sure I was going to go. So my dad said, well, I don't think you should do that because we're not going to be home, and suppose there's an emergency. So I said, well, I'm grown. I'm 18. I can fend for myself. So Joyce, who's our stepmother, said at the time, she's deceased now, God rest her soul. She's a beautiful woman. She said, Ernest, let her do what she's got to do. She's not going to spoil our weekend. So I said, So Dad said, okay, get your stuff together. I'll drop you off wherever you have to go. I said, okay, that'll be great. So he dropped me off in the hood. He dropped me off, and before I could turn around and say anything, he took that Cadillac down the street, had a big, beautiful, shiny Cadillac. He zoomed right off. I could barely get the door closed. So I, went up to the door and knocked on the door, and one of my friends said, oh, girl, you came. Come on in. We're going to have a good time. So I was like, okay. So I was looking around thinking, did I make the right decision? But at the same time, there's nothing I could do because my daddy took off. He wasn't going to give me a lecture. He wasn't going to try to beg me to come back, get back in the car. He took off. So I was there. I was in it to win it. Ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you that was a nightmare on Elm Street, you can believe it. The party started, my dad got me there about maybe 6 or 7. The party started about 8 or 9. I can't remember. It was dark, I know that. And people started coming in. They had, at the time, they were wearing Apache bands and, the guys, we had the jackets all with the fringe and, I can remember that the bell-bottom pants, the go-go boots, everybody was decked out. And they started passing this bowl around. So I said, well, I wonder what that is. And my girlfriend said, oh, girl, just take one. Those are uppers. And I said, what's an upper? And everybody looked over at me, the people who were right in my area, and they started laughing. And they said, oh, she didn't know what an upper is. Give her one. I said, oh, no, I can't take that. It looks like medication. Now, I wasn't stupid. I might have been 18 and rebellious, but I wasn't stupid. And they said, well, yeah, that's what it is. I said, well, whose medication is it? And so somebody said, look, we can't be bothered with her. We're trying to get high. So immediately I caught myself. I said, oh, my God, these people are taking drugs. They don't even know what it is. So I said, I was trying to be cool because I knew I was going to have to spend a night there. I was going to be there for 2 days, Friday, Saturday. My dad picks me up on Sunday. So I was trying to be cool because I didn't want to start any confusion. So I said, let me just be cool. Let me be cool. So they were passing the bowl around, and I was just acting like I was cool and all of that. And then I kind of slipped out of the loop and went into a room where it was a little baby in the room. Her diaper was so big, it was like a big bubble. It was so wet until the poor little baby couldn't hardly walk. That the diaper hadn't been changed maybe in 5 or 6 hours. It was just filled with pee-pee. And I said, oh, my God. And I stepped out the room. I said, excuse me, whose baby is this? I need to change this baby's diaper. So I'm going in trying to help because I'm a helper by nature. I'm really a good person. I was pulling a side of me that really didn't exist because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to fit in. But the good side of me came out, and I said, well, does anybody know where the diapers are? So nobody was listening to me. They had the music blast, and everybody was just, they were going. They were like partying down. I guess those uppers or whatever it was had everybody flying in there. So I went back in the room and I looked through some drawers and everything was a mess. Roaches, it was just a mess. So I finally found something that I could, kind of mimic as a diaper. Back in the day, they didn't have Pampers where you could stick those little things on. You had to have diaper pins. And I found something, and I took the diaper off, the little plastic, underwear, and then the diaper, the cloth, and helped the baby as much as I could. And I rocked the baby and put her to sleep. And I sat there for a while, and I said, I think I made a bad decision. I think I was stupid. And then, of course, the other side of me said, no, you're going to have fun, you're going to have fun. So I stepped out the room, and I started dancing with somebody. I didn't even know who he was. And he started putting his hands on me, and I said, no, don't do that. And he was just going all, dancing, going all down on you, putting his hands. I said, no, don't do that. So I was feeling uncomfortable. I said, let me step out of this situation because I didn't want to start a scene. I went into the kitchen and started helping them make bologna sandwiches. So they had bologna sandwiches and Kool-Aid. And I said, Lord, I gave up fried fish, a nice day, couple of days in our cabin for this. So I went out and started passing out the sandwiches, and I was making myself as useful as I could and not be a wallflower, because if you're a wallflower, they'll come pick on you. So I kind of made it through the evening, and around maybe 2 or 3 o'clock that morning, I heard some fighting and screaming. And I'm laying on a bed that's, half pee, pissy on one side. You can smell the pee. And I'm balled up in the corner trying to sleep on the corner of the bed. And I look out the window, and there's a woman beating a little thin man, beating him with her, she was beating him up. and he was on a rail, where we were. Those apartments, they were like the projects, and it had like little bar railing. She was beating him, he was hollering and screaming. And I went, I said, where's my girlfriend? She was in the room with her boyfriend. So I told her, whatever her name was, I said, excuse me. I woke up, she says, oh girl, no, I'm tired. I said, I'm not comfortable here. She said, well, you shouldn't have come over if you wasn't comfortable, Sabrina. You just made it bad for me tonight. You didn't even fit in. And I said, okay, I just left her alone. The next day, I just stayed in the room, was starving, didn't want to eat out of anything. Sunday came around, I ran out of that apartment, honey. I ran down that sidewalk down to the corner of the street where I know my daddy had to come and get me. He said he would be there at 6 o'clock sharp on Sunday. At 6 o'clock he was there, and I beat him there. I jumped in that car. I said, Daddy, I will never do that again. He started laughing. He said, you had to learn the hard way. He said, I'm glad they didn't kill you, because normally the kids like you don't make it out of here. I said, I didn't know that. I said, but I will never do that again. And I will be appreciative for what God has given us. Because my mother had just passed away, our mother, so we came to live with our father. So we had a whole new lifestyle, a whole new experience. And I was rebelling against it. But I realized it was a blessing in disguise. I realized that our Father wasn't trying to hurt us. He was trying to help us. They were adjusting to us just like we were adjusting to them. Sometimes we don't see it, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes we always pick the wrong information. Sometimes we always listen to other people and not pay attention to what we need to see. That's even nowadays in current events, how we live today. Sometimes we don't pay attention to what we need to pay attention to, and we find ourselves in a quagmire of confusion. We must pay attention and be appreciative. We must make sure that we don't fall into the wrong hands, you young people out there. Kids are doing just about any and everything. They're carrying guns, they're getting shot up on the weekends. This is not good behavior. They're doing drugs unnecessarily, just overdosing, drinking and not even of age. That is not cool. Parents, you young people out there who have children, it's hard, I know, because you've got a lot on your mind too, but you got to do a better job. These kids are running rampant, and we have got to do a better job. We have got to help these kids, because there are nice kids out there who are being raised right, who are being pulled into the confusion because they're going along with get along. Let's go along with get along. And they're falling apart themselves too. We've got to pray harder. We've got to ask God for the strength we need to help get this life back in order with these young people. Young people, you have to do your part too. Life is beautiful. And just in case you do make it, because I hear young people saying, well, I'm not going to make it anyway. Well, just in case you do, you're messing up your life. Just in case you do, you won't have anything to look forward to because you're blowing it now. Don't mess up your life. Get a good education. Learn a trade or a skill. If you want to go to college, do that. Get some knowledge behind you. Be respectful. Learn how to do things. Learn how to think positive thoughts. Fill your subconscious mind with positive information, a good mindset. Believe in your heart that you will achieve, and you will. Life is short before you know it. Before I knew it, I was 71 years old. It was like, wow, what happened? It goes quickly, but it doesn't go quickly until you get there. Then you realize, wow, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Don't let that be you. Take care of business, young people. And you adult women, fathers and mothers, adult women who have children, who are single parents, God is with us all. You, me. He's with us, but we have to be with him. We forget that. We get caught up in our own self-pity and our own sadness, and we get bitter and we get mad and we forget we have to do our part too. So let's do that. Let's make it a better place. We can, and we can win in the end. I wish you nothing but the best. Send me a message and let me know how you feel about this. Let me know what you're doing. Give me a thumbs up. Let's help and work together for good. And until I see you again, I wish you love, peace, happiness, and our Heavenly Father God, His divine order. He's in all of us. He's in every living thing. He loves us. But He wants us to know we must love ourselves and love Him first, because with Him, all things are possible. See you next time. Bye now.